A giraffe blocks traffic in a city. What it does to help a child melted everyone's heart. The city was alive with its usual symphony of honking horns, hurried footsteps, and distant construction. On the bustling Fifth Avenue, amidst a sea of impatient drivers and towering skyscrapers, a strange commotion began to ripple through the crowd. In the midst of it all, Laura Cooper, a single mother juggling a demanding job, and her spirited 6-year-old son, Evan, was trapped in her car. The city traffic was unforgiving, stretching as far as the eye could see. Evan sat in the back seat, his small hands clutching a worn teddy bear. His pale face, etched with a quiet weariness, told a story of countless hospital visits. Laura glanced anxiously at the clock. "We can't miss this appointment," she murmured, her knuckles whitening against the steering wheel. The specialists at St. Mary's Children's Hospital had finally agreed to see Evan today, a rare opportunity she couldn't afford to waste. Suddenly, a murmur swept through the crowd. People were stepping out of their cars, pointing and gasping. Laura squinted ahead, trying to make sense of the chaos. Then she saw it. A giraffe, impossibly tall and majestic, strolling calmly through the intersection. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The giraffe's spotted neck stretched high above the traffic lights, its large, soulful eyes surveying the human chaos with an almost ethereal calm. The city, with all its noise and urgency, seemed to bow to this gentle giant. "Mommy, look! A giraffe!" Evan's voice, weak but tinged with awe, broke through Laura's panic. "I see it, sweetheart," Laura whispered, her own breath caught between disbelief and wonder. But her heart clenched. They couldn't afford delays. Not today. As the giraffe moved gracefully between the stalled cars, its presence stirred a mix of emotions: astonishment, fear, and curiosity. People emerged from their vehicles, phones raised, documenting the surreal moment. The animal seemed out of place, yet oddly unbothered by the bustling cityscape. Laura's car was still trapped in the gridlock. She considered honking, but stopped herself, not wanting to startle the creature. Just as she rolled down the window to get a better look, a loud crash echoed nearby. A delivery truck had swerved in a bid to avoid the giraffe and hit a lamppost. The impact caused a cascade of sparks and sent pedestrians scattering. The giraffe froze, its ears twitching. The crash seemed to have unsettled it, and for the first time, its calm demeanor gave way to visible distress. It turned abruptly, its hooves clattering against the asphalt, heading straight toward Laura's car. "Stay still, Evan," Laura whispered, her voice trembling. She locked eyes with the towering creature, her pulse racing. As the giraffe approached, its massive frame blocked the sunlight, casting a shadow over the car. Laura held her breath. Evan, however, seemed entranced, his tiny hand reaching toward the window as if to touch the creature. The giraffe lowered its neck, bringing its face level with the car window. Its enormous eyes, deep and warm, seemed to study Laura and Evan intently. For a moment, Laura felt as though the creature could see right into her soul, reading the desperation that had taken root in her heart. Evan giggled softly, breaking the spell. "Hi, big guy," he said, his voice faint but filled with a childlike wonder. He pressed his hand against the glass, his pale fingers outstretched. The giraffe tilted its head, almost as if responding to Evan's greeting. It blinked slowly, its long lashes casting delicate shadows over its face. Then, to Laura's astonishment, it tapped its nose gently against the window, creating a soft thud. Laura's heart raced. "Evan, stay still," she cautioned, her voice a mix of fear and awe. But Evan was fearless. He opened the window a crack before Laura could stop him. "Don't be scared, Mummy," he said. "He's nice." The giraffe let out a soft, low hum, a sound Laura had never heard before. It was soothing, almost melodic, and it seemed to calm not just Evan but Laura herself. Suddenly a sharp honk shattered the moment. A taxi driver, frustrated by the delay, had laid on his horn. The giraffe reared slightly, its massive head brushing against a nearby street sign. People gasped, some shouting in panic. Laura instinctively reached for Evan, pulling him close. But then, something remarkable happened. The giraffe, instead of fleeing or panicking, seemed to focus on Evan. It stepped back slightly, its long legs moving with a deliberate grace, and lowered itself onto its knees, right in the middle of the street. "Mommy, look!" Evan exclaimed, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "He's bowing!" Laura couldn't believe her eyes. The giraffe, towering and majestic, was kneeling before them, its head dipping low. It was as though the creature understood something no one else did. The crowd around them fell silent, captivated by the sight. Even the impatient taxi driver seemed to forget his frustration, his hand frozen on the horn. Cameras clicked, capturing the surreal moment. But Laura hardly noticed. All she could see was the bond forming between her son and this extraordinary animal. As the giraffe remained kneeling, Evan's curiosity got the better of him. "Can I say hi, Mommy? Please?" he asked, his eyes sparkling for the first time in weeks. Laura hesitated, her protective instincts battling with the surreal calm of the moment. Finally, she nodded. "Stay close to me," she said, opening her door cautiously. She helped Evan out of the car, his small hand clutching hers. The giraffe watched them intently, but didn't move, its enormous frame radiating a strange serenity. Evan took a tentative step forward. "Hi, Mr. Giraffe," he said softly. He held out his teddy bear as if offering it as a gift. "This is Teddy. He's my best friend." To Laura's amazement, the giraffe stretched its neck down further, its nostrils flaring as it sniffed the bear. Then, ever so gently, it nuzzled Evan's hand. Evan giggled, his laughter ringing out like a bell in the otherwise silent street. The crowd erupted in applause, but the moment felt private, almost sacred. Laura felt tears sting her eyes. For the first time in months, Evan looked like a regular child, happy, curious, alive. Suddenly, a voice broke through the crowd. "That giraffe's from the Wildlife Reserve." A man in a uniform pushed his way forward, holding a tranquilizer gun. "It must have escaped during transport. We need to sedate it before it causes more chaos." "No!" Evan cried, clutching the giraffe's neck as much as his small arms could manage. "He's my friend. Don't hurt him." The giraffe turned its head toward the man, its large eyes blinking slowly. It made no move to run or resist, as if it understood the tension in the air. Laura stepped in front of Evan, her protective instincts surging. "Wait," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "This animal isn't hurting anyone, it's helping." The man hesitated, his gaze flicking between Laura, Evan, and the giraffe. The crowd murmured in agreement, their initial fear replaced by awe. The giraffe, still kneeling, let out another low hum, the sound reverberating through the street. "Fine," the man said reluctantly, lowering his gun, "but it can't stay here. We need to move it safely." Just then, Evan's knees buckled. His energy, which had surged in his excitement, seemed to drain all at once. Laura caught him, her heart pounding. "Evan!" The giraffe stood immediately, its body tense as if sensing Evan's distress. Before anyone could react, it lowered its neck and nudged Laura gently, guiding her toward its side. "What's it doing?" someone in the crowd whispered. Laura looked up, her breath catching. The giraffe was lowering itself again, this time lying flat on its stomach. It turned its head to look at her, its eyes filled with a strange, quiet determination. Evan stirred weakly in her arms. "Mummy, can I ride him? Please?" Laura hesitated for only a moment. Something about the giraffe's behavior felt deliberate, almost purposeful. Carefully, she lifted Evan onto the animal's back, her hands trembling. The crowd gasped, phones snapping pictures furiously. The giraffe stood slowly, its movements smooth and calculated to avoid jostling its fragile passenger. It turned its head toward Laura, as if waiting for her to follow. As the giraffe rose to its full height, the city seemed to hold its breath. Evan clung to its neck, his face lighting up with pure joy. "I'm riding a giraffe, Mommy," he called, his voice echoing down the street. For a moment, Laura's fears melted away, replaced by the rare sound of her son's laughter. But the spell was broken as the wildlife reserve worker barked into his radio. "We've got to move this animal, now! It's a safety hazard!" The giraffe, seemingly understanding the urgency, began to walk forward. The crowd parted instinctively, their eyes glued to the surreal sight. Laura hurried alongside it, her hand brushing against its long, powerful leg, as if to reassure herself it was real. The man with the tranquilizer gun followed at a distance, his team scrambling to coordinate. "We need to guide it to an open area," he shouted. "It's not safe in the city." The giraffe's long strides carried it with surprising grace through the chaos. It moved as if it had a destination in mind, its head held high, its ears twitching at every sound. Evan, perched securely on its back, looked down at the world with wide eyes, his pale cheeks flushed with excitement. But the city wasn't done testing them yet. As the giraffe approached a narrow alley, a sudden commotion erupted. A fire alarm blared from a nearby building, and panicked pedestrians spilled onto the street. The giraffe stopped abruptly, its ears flattening against its head. It shifted nervously, its hooves clattering against the pavement. "Stay calm," Laura whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was speaking to the giraffe, Evan, or herself. She reached out, her hand brushing against its leg. "It's okay. We're okay." The giraffe let out a soft grunt, its massive body trembling. Evan leaned forward, patting its neck. "You're doing great, big guy," he said, his small voice full of encouragement. "Don't be scared." The giraffe seemed to steady itself at Evan's words. It took a cautious step forward, then another, navigating through the chaos with remarkable composure. Laura felt a surge of gratitude and awe. This animal, so out of place in the urban jungle, was showing a courage that left her breathless. But the challenges didn't end there. As they turned a corner, a sudden downpour began, the rain hammering against the asphalt. The giraffe paused, shaking its head as the water streamed down its face. Laura's clothes were quickly soaked, but she hardly noticed. Her focus was on Evan, whose thin jacket offered little protection against the cold. "Mommy, I'm wet," Evan said, his voice trembling. Laura's heart ached. She couldn't let him get sick, not when he was already so fragile. She looked around desperately, but there was no shelter in sight. The crowd had thinned, many seeking cover from the rain. Then, as if sensing Evan's discomfort, the giraffe lowered its neck, angling its massive body to shield him from the worst of the rain. Its long tail flicked, swatting away water droplets. Laura stared in disbelief, tears mingling with the rain on her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. The giraffe continued its journey, its determination unwavering despite the storm. Laura followed, her legs aching, but she refused to fall behind. She thought of the hospital appointment, the specialists waiting for them. She thought of Evan, his laughter, his resilience. And she thought of the giraffe, this improbable savior who had appeared out of nowhere to guide them through the city. As the rain began to lighten, the giraffe stopped in front of an open park. The wide expanse of grass and trees was a stark contrast to the towering buildings around it. The animal turned its head, looking back at Laura as if to say, "Here, this is where you need to be." Laura hesitated, unsure what to do next. The reserve workers were catching up, their trucks pulling into the park's entrance, but before they could act, Evan let out a sudden gasp. "Mommy, look!" he said, pointing ahead. Laura followed his gaze and saw a small group of children playing near the edge of the park. They were laughing, running through the puddles left by the rain. Among them was a boy holding a balloon, a bright red one that danced in the wind. Evan's eyes lit up. "I want to play with them," he said softly. Laura's throat tightened. Evan hadn't played with other children in months, his illness keeping him isolated. She turned to the giraffe, her voice breaking. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for giving us this moment." The giraffe bent its neck low, allowing Laura to lift Evan from its back. As she set him on the ground, he stumbled slightly, his legs weak, but his determination strong. He walked toward the children, his steps slow but steady. The children noticed him immediately. One boy ran over, offering Evan the red balloon. Evan took it, his face breaking into a radiant smile. The giraffe watched from a distance, its eyes soft and knowing. It let out one final hum, a sound that seemed to resonate through the park. Then, as the reserve workers approached cautiously, it turned and began to walk away. "Wait," Laura called, her heart aching. "Will we see you again?" The giraffe paused, looking back at her for a long moment. Then it disappeared into the trees, its tall frame blending with the shadows. Evan's health improved in the weeks that followed. The doctors at St. Mary's were amazed at his progress. But Laura knew the truth. It wasn't just the treatments, it was the giraffe. That day in the city had given Evan something no medicine could: hope. The story of the giraffe spread quickly, the images and videos captured by bystanders going viral. People around the world were moved by the tale of the gentle giant who had brought joy to a sick child. Laura often found herself thinking about the giraffe. She wondered where it had come from, how it had known to help them. But some questions, she realized, didn't need answers. The giraffe had been a gift, a reminder of the unexpected beauty in the world. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Laura and Evan stood on their balcony. Evan held a red balloon, his face glowing in the golden light. "Do you think the giraffe is okay?" he asked, his voice filled with quiet wonder. Laura smiled, her hand resting on his shoulder. "I think it's more than okay," she said. "I think it's out there, making someone else's day a little brighter." As the balloon floated upward, disappearing into the sky, Laura felt a deep sense of gratitude. The giraffe had taught her something she would carry forever. Even in the darkest moments there is light to be found, and sometimes it comes in the most unexpected forms.